Hello and welcome to this workshop on publication of trachoma survey data run by Tropical Data and the London School of Hygiene and Tropical Medicine. Before we get started, we would like to sincerely thank all of our partners involved in the running of Tropical Data. We would also like to thank everyone involved in the creation of this workshop, in particular the Ethiopian Ministry of Health, in collaboration with whom this course was designed and developed. Catherine Dominic of Queen Mary's University London, who converted hours of various presentations into this online workshop, and Pia Mingkwan for the graphic design and formatting, as well as the narration of this workshop. Finally, we would like to thank the Fred Hollows Foundation and RTI International for funding the workshop and development of these online open access materials. Here is an outline of the different stages the course will cover. You will move through each of these sessions over the course of this workshop. In this session, we are covering the introduction to the workshop. After this, there are sessions on writing the introduction, methods, results, and discussion sections of your manuscript, as well as formatting and preparing it for publication. This workshop is aimed at preparing a publication to be suitable for publication in an academic journal, describing existing data from completed programmatic trachoma prevalence surveys. If you are an experienced author, you may not wish to watch all of these sessions. We have created this workshop with flexibility in mind, so you are free to watch these sessions at your own pace, taking as little or as long as you'd like. We do not suggest a specific time scale. You can take as long as you like to review this content as fits in your schedule. Each video session will last around 15 to 20 minutes, and there may be several resources to read after each session. Some participants may also wish to conduct additional analyses beyond those that we will suggest in the later sessions. The envisioned format for the workshop sessions is that you will watch a video or screencast focusing on one part of writing a manuscript, then go away and review recommended materials and freely available resources in your own time. Finally, you will put your learning into practice by preparing the corresponding manuscript section before watching the next session's video. Let's start by discussing the background and rationale for this course. Tropical Data aims to provide end-to-end support for prevalence surveys. Publication is one important method by which we can disseminate data. Because of the care and scientific rigor that goes into the design of population-based prevalence surveys for trachoma, an academic journal forum is an appropriate place to publish these data. Before it can be published in an academic journal, the work must be reviewed by peers working in trachoma surveillance, which adds an extra level of quality control to the work to ensure trachoma surveys are being carried out to the highest possible standards. There are other benefits to publication as well. For example, it encourages authors to prepare the data in a clear and organized format, which makes it easier to incorporate into future elimination dossiers. It enables programs to share their experience of trachoma surveys and learn from others, and it provides a publicly available permanent record of progress, which can be a resource for advocacy for future funding and support. The Global Trachoma Elimination Program is one of the most advanced and successful neglected tropical disease elimination programs, having reduced the number of people at risk of trachoma by 91% between 2002 and 2019. And made major contributions towards the Vision 2020 initiative to eliminate avoidable blindness. Stakeholders from both the NTD and eye care fields rely on the availability of information for planning and advocacy purposes. And this is evidenced by the number of times current trachoma prevalence survey data papers have been accessed. When the materials for this workshop were developed in June of 2020, trachoma prevalence articles were 2 of the 4 most read articles in the Journal of Ophthalmic Epidemiology, and publications from Ethiopia alone had a combined total of more than 7,400 views since the first one was published in 2016. We will now outline the aim of the course. We hope by the end of this workshop that you will have prepared a first draft of a manuscript and be prepared to circulate this to your co-authors to review. The course is intended to equip you with necessary skills to enable you to achieve this aim. The process which will be followed is outlined here. First, survey data should be identified for inclusion. After that, an authorship group should be identified. This should include health ministry representatives who have played roles in implementing the trachoma programs, but also should include technical, implementing, academic, or funding partners. A manuscript lead should be identified who can coordinate the whole process, delegate activities, and take overall responsibility for the content. Typically, this would be the Senior Health Ministry focal point, who is responsible for the Trachoma program. Once an authorship group has been established and roles have been allocated, you will download and use the software for the presentation of data, and then watch workshop episodes corresponding to the various manuscript sections, preparing a manuscript draft section by section as you review the sessions. Finally, you will format your draft for submission to a peer-reviewed journal. Within the scope of this workshop are analysis of the prevalence from tropical data-supported surveys, the changes in TF prevalence since the beginning of the program, and the change in WASH indicators since the beginning of the program. Outside of the scope is analysis of prevalence from non-tropical data-supported surveys, secondary research questions, and complex statistical analyses. We will now outline which data should be included in these publications. This workshop will focus on publication of tropical data-supported survey data because the standardization of those surveys makes it easier to summarize their methodology in a single publication. With that in mind, tropical data-supported survey data, final approved district reports from tropical data, TF, TI, TT, and household-level WASH data, baseline impact surveillance, or TT-only surveys, and, where relevant, particularly if previously unpublished, data generated in each evaluation unit before tropical data surveys are suitable for inclusion in these manuscripts. Unfinished surveys and non-program research data will not be suitable for inclusion. The next part of the session will discuss authorship. Authorship of academic articles can be a sensitive issue. A large number of people are involved in making trachoma surveys happen, and many should be acknowledged as authors on resulting manuscripts. It can sometimes be difficult to decide who should be an author and who shouldn't be. The International Committee of Medical Journal Editors provides guidelines on who should be considered for authorship. Please pause the video here and take a moment to go to the ICMJE website to review the materials there. You can type ICMJE authorship guidelines into Google or click on the link that is in this video's description. To test your understanding of the guidelines, try to answer these questions. Question 1. Katrina was one of a number of recorders involved in data recording in the field, but had no other input on study planning, data analysis, or production of the manuscript. Would she meet the ICMJE criteria for authorship? Let's consider the criteria. The first is that she should have made a substantial contribution to data generation. This is subjective, but seeing as she was one of a number of recorders and didn't have a role in planning, implementation, or analysis, we might not see it as substantial. She does not meet the second criterion of having contributed to the write-up, nor the third of approving the submitted article. On balance, she should not be an author, but she should be acknowledged for her role in the manuscript's acknowledgements section. Question 2. Enoch was the neglected tropical disease focal point at the Health Ministry 2 years ago. He set up the Trachoma program, obtained funding, and wrote the protocol, but has now changed jobs. His replacement is involved in the manuscript. By obtaining funding and designing the study, Enoch's contribution can definitely be considered substantial. Wording from the protocol could also be used to prepare the manuscript. He should definitely be a co-author. However, he does need to also fulfill the criteria of contributing to the manuscript and reviewing and approving the final draft. Question 3. Siobhan, a senior representative for the operational partners supporting the Health Ministry Trachoma program, reviewed the protocol for trachoma surveys. She has constantly advocated for the Trachoma program to receive additional funding and has contributed to high-level planning for the surveys to take place. Should she be an author? Siobhan may not have always been visible on the ground while doing these surveys, but her continued work behind the scenes to ensure the surveys are well planned and well funded have been critical to the success of the surveys. She should be considered for authorship, but remember, she also needs to fulfill the criteria of contributing to the manuscript and reviewing and approving the final draft. Here are the criteria for consideration of authorship, as taken from the ICMJE website. Substantial contributions to the conception or design of the work, or the acquisition, analysis, or interpretation of data for the work, and drafting the work or revising it critically for important intellectual content, and final approval of the version to be published, and agreement to be accountable for all aspects of the work in ensuring that questions related to the accuracy or integrity of any part of the work are appropriately investigated and resolved. You will note that all authors should have the opportunity to review, approve, and take responsibility for the content of the manuscript, so all co-authors should have a chance to review the manuscript at least once before submission. Potential organizations which might have individuals who should be considered as co-authors include health ministries or subnational healthcare system staff, clinical staff who have been involved in conducting training and/or fieldwork, academic partners, implementing partners, technical partners, and former staff who may have been previously involved but now have moved on. And potential areas of work or tasks for which they could be credited include planning, study design, fieldwork, data management, data analysis, reporting, and more. By convention, certain positions in the list of authors are considered to carry more responsibility than others. In particular, the first and last names in the authorship list are typically the most senior collaborators who have taken the most significant roles in facilitating the surveys and who take responsibility for the manuscript content. The authorship group should be led by a senior Ministry of Health representative who is responsible for the Trachoma program or their proxy. Those who would not meet the authorship criteria can still be acknowledged in the acknowledgements section rather than being an author. This is, for example, any field staff, participants, or colleagues who did not fully meet all the criteria for authorship. All manuscripts should acknowledge funders of the survey through a dedicated funding section, but we will come back to that later. With regards to planning the manuscript, work can be divided between co-authors at the lead author's discretion. However, asking too many people for input can cause confusion, differences of opinion, and delays. All co-authors should approve the final version of the manuscript. This diagram shows our suggested process to be followed. We suggest that a small focus group within the larger authorship group is given the task of writing, and that others can support on specific areas as needed, and provide input once the first draft has been written. Finally, we will outline the requirements to take part in this publication workshop. To take part in this course, the first and most important thing is to engage with the health ministry for the country you are presenting data from. They own the data and have the right to control how and when it is presented. In addition, you will need a computer with a modern Windows operating system and an internet connection with sufficient bandwidth to stream videos. There is also an option to download these sessions and watch them later for those who have connection difficulties. You will need access to the raw and summarized data outputs for the tropical data and other Trachoma reports from the areas you are describing. These sessions will be delivered in English. Session transcripts are available in English, French, Portuguese, and Spanish. We will also make transcripts available, and every talk will have subtitles. We have reached the end of this session. Now you should be ready to start writing. The first task is to prepare a skeleton outline of the manuscript. This should include an authorship list and their affiliations, a summary of data to be included, the manuscript subheadings, and a bullet point list of the general points you might like to cover in each section. Review the materials in this section for more information on how to do this. We also suggest that you look at journals to which you would like to target your work. You can then read their previous publications on Trachoma surveys. We also have provided links below in the video description to GTMP and tropical data publications, which may give you a useful idea of subheadings and structure for your manuscript. When you have an outline prepared, go on to the session on required software for writing. Thank you very much for listening. We hope you have found it useful and look forward to seeing you in the next session.